In 2016, Cedar Point introduced the Sunrise Tours. Now this year, Canada's Wonderland is introducing Sunrise Tours. Should Kings Island be doing this? Hello, everyone. Alongside the pugnacious Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are, and that is who we care about. Let's start it off by thanking our Prestige members. Thank you, Aaron Bort, 330T, Logan Lipper, Brian Hauser, Lil Mac, 21, Miss Mandy, 1983, Jacob Fix, Stephen Hornack, Eric Grau, Ian Crawford, Damon Barnes, Dustin Jackson, and our newest Prestige member, Songstress Miku. So thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the Prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the videos, exclusive content, exclusive live streams, and hey, some tiers get some free stuff. So click that link.
Ryan, it's always good to see new members joining the list.
Yeah, I'm running out of breath doing this stuff. I'm going to have to take a breather in between. I'm so flattered. I really am.
Yeah, so Canada's Wonderland, they recently announced that they're going to be offering the Sunrise Tours. This is an incredible behind-the-scenes opportunity experience for guests that are going to take advantage of the early bird offer here. You're going to get to see the park, like never before that time of the morning. What, Ryan, does this going to entail at Canada's Wonderland?
So there's actually a lot of facets to it. So don't hit that dial, because this is definitely different from like the, behind the stage tour or even VIP tours of the past. So you get early access starting at 6:30 a.m., well before the park opens to the public. You'll get behind the scenes access and behind the wall of Yukon Striker and Leviathan as the staff prepare these massive coasters for the day. You get to go to the top of Wonder Mountain, climb the summit of Wonder Mountain for a breathtaking panoramic view of the park, including the brand new Alpen Fury coaster. This also includes admission to the park for your entire day, a parking voucher, single meal deal, all-day fun picks, and 2 single-use fast lane vouchers. So just a couple of housekeeping things. The tour requires a minimum of 2 guests and a maximum of 10. Each tour lasts for 3 hours, wrapping up right around the time the park opens. Available most days, May 16th through the 30th. Pricing is $225 out the door or $175 if you are a season pass holder.
So what, $50 savings right there for a pass holder?
Yep, you save about $50 as a pass holder, which, I mean, it's pretty cool because, obviously for Kings Island fans, they probably have to have the all-park passport and stuff, but a regular gold pass is like $100 anyway, a little over $100 Canadian. So
it's a really, if you're especially for coaster enthusiast, or you're not in an enthusiast group, but you really love all the behind the scenes type facets of an amusement park. This is an incredible opportunity. And, I was spoiled because working at Kings Island, I always got to see, what was going on before the park opened, putting on the trains in the morning on the Beast, the Racer, Diamondback, Orion, you name the ride, and just seeing everything that goes into getting the park ready to open, the next day at 10 a.m. A lot of times, it's just assumed that everyone leaves at 10 o'clock and then tomorrow, the next day, everything just fires back up again. But there's just so much work that goes into it. And you start to see that work, as early as they said, 6:30 here in the morning. You're going to see a lot of things going on. The cleaning crews that'll be going around the park, hosing down the park, just all those little things that, you didn't realize that happened. So for me, I think this is just, a great thing. It's a great opportunity that Cedar Point has been doing with their Sunrise Tour, where you get to go to the top of Valraven. And then here you are, with Canada's Wonderland, and it's a complete package, a lot of different things. You mentioned that it has, the parking voucher, the single meal deal. That's a great, piece right there to get the single meal deal with this. You get all day fun picks. That's an awesome, piece of this package. So for me, there are those VIP tours that parks in the Legacy 6 or Cedar Fair chain had done, where there was the VIP experience and you got escorted up, front of the line access, those kind of things. That kind of off a little bit with Fast Lane and All Season Fast Lane. But this is a little bit different. It allows you to see a way, see the park in a way that is just not available uh, to any guest that comes to the park. So, I'm excited about this. I think I'd like to see more parks do it, which brings us to Kings Island. If they were to do this at Kings Island, Ryan, for you, what would have to be included? What would this look like for you?
That's a great question, Don. And I've been cycling through my head um, several different scenarios because this would definitely be targeted to somebody like me. It
Hmm.
would not be enough to go back behind the scenes of the beast. I've done that, been there, got the t-shirt, left the t-shirt back there, got another t-shirt. So
Yeah,
for me, it's okay. Then I would say that the number one thing that I would say, probably the gold standard, would be to be able to climb the lift hill of Diamondback or Orion. That would be worth it. Orion's taller, but I think Diamondback might be the better one because it's a better view of the park.
you would
But
definitely have
either
a better view of the park with Diamondback. I can tell you though, that is no easy climb
I
on
didn't say it would
Diamondback.
be easy. I said it would be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So that's the other piece of it is there would be guests that would get halfway up and their legs would feel like rubber band. They just couldn't go any further. I think so. That to me would be why I wouldn't go with those two rides. But everyone's mileage is gonna vary, and you're on those two rides. So continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, this would have to be one of those things because you did the voyage at Holiday World. And we'll discuss that a little bit more in length in a moment. But the voyage is not. I mean, that's almost 200 feet tall, and your cross country days are over. So and you made it to the
It
top. Yeah.
wasn't as bad as I was anticipating that morning. I got to the park early and I thought, wow, that's pretty high up there. And, I don't know how my legs are going to feel. It'd been a couple of years since I'd say my legs were conditioned, from playing hockey and doing a lot of skating and that. So it wasn't as grueling as I thought. And it was, it was a nice climb to the top. And I can tell you that was one of the best theme park experiences I ever had was doing the morning tour there at Holiday World and getting to climb to the top of the voyage. And you had a great view of the park, from up there. Great view looking down at Good Gravy, which was just off to the right of the voyage lift
Yeah.
hill. But it wasn't just that. It was when you came back down. That experience included, the maintenance guys were in the station ready for you. They all had bottled water ready for you, and they talked about the work that they did every morning to get the voyage ready, and then they walked you. You went out of the station the back way. As you would come into the station, but you walked out, and then you walked through some of those tunnels. Before you get to the end of the ride. We got to see some of the other, maintenance guys were doing the morning checks and got to see what was going on there. Great photo opportunities. They let us all like lift up the vest and everything. It has all their tools and everything that they carry around, and that was almost like 50 pounds. You don't think about that, but try
Yeah.
climbing. Let alone climbing to the top of the voyage, but carrying almost 50 pounds worth of tools in that with you to do that. But that was an amazing experience. And then after, you got done with that, you got, front of line access to Thunderbird to start your day. So I mean, what better way to start your day at Holiday World than a ride on Thunderbird, right? So that was one of the most. I did a piece on my blog, Theme Parks by Don, last summer after I did that, just kind of talking about that experience, and just incredible. So you think about Kings Island, what they could do. The package for me would be the Beast, and I wouldn't do the first lift hill. I would do the second one where you kind of go behind the scenes a little bit. You could see maintenance and that getting the ride ready in the morning as part of this tour, putting the
Mhm.
trains on, doing some test cycles. But then you walk the second lift hill, and the reason being is because it kind of turns a little bit before you go down the drops. A little bit more room if you have a group of 8 or 10 people up there to kind of look at. But when you get to the very top, straight on is the Eiffel Tower in the park. You'd see, the other rides in the park from up there. That in the morning with the sun coming up, usually comes up behind Banshee. That would be a spectacular photo opportunity. And there's a way if you've been behind the scenes of the Beast before, when you are at that second lift to the motor house and that you walk down the hill a little bit, and then there is that area where you can, start your climb right there. You can just go in. There's a little gate there, and then you climb up. So you wouldn't have to get at the very base of it, but you would be able to climb up. That's 141 feet. So that it drops, but it's a pretty good climb to the top just from that point. And I think just from the photo opportunities, that would offer the best views of the park from up there that you're going to get, besides the Eiffel Tower. For me. So I think those would be some stunning shots. That would be important to have that as part of it. I think the all-day, dining plan, I think that would be important to include something like that. The fun picks, I mean, that is an underrated, perk benefit when they include those, and whether it's events like Coaster Stock or other things, because, you want to always capture and remember those memories. And there's so many rides at Kings Island that has the fun picks that you're going to get good value out of that. So I think that's what I would kind of base it around, is some of those kind of things. And if they did that and it was, say, 175 for pass holders, 225 for non-pass holders, yeah, I'd do it.
Well, the thing that I'm noticing here is that it looks like there's a couple different facets. So you get to, forget all the rest of the stuff. Parking voucher, single meal, all day fun packs. That's easy. Just clone it. But they're doing Yukon Striker and Leviathan, and the top of Wonder Mountain. So to me, one thing that I've always wanted to do is to be able to walk through Boo Blasters. I think that would be a cool little add-on where you can walk through, and then usually tech services is in there working on the guns and stuff, and maybe they can tell you about the kind of maintenance that goes through.
You could do Boo Blasters and then take them to Diamondback on your way to the Beast.
Yeah. I mean, so I would do 3 things in there, because the thing though is you'd
have to beef it up. I mean, to make it, something people are going to pay $175 for if you're a pass holder, and I'll start right there because most of them would be pass holders. Is you have to have enough things going on. If there are 3 things like that, and you had the Boo Blaster, I think everybody would love, to walk through that with the lights on. And then, you came behind Diamondback, and, we're able to get some photos of that, in the morning as it's doing maybe some test runs, or just to be able to get some spots that you just can't go, during the day, or even if you're with a coaster group. Like Coaster Stock, you can't do it because there's too many people. So there's only so far back that you can go with Diamondback, to get those photos. But if there's only, 4 of you, 8 of you, 10, you can take them a lot further back to get some of those great shots. And then, you kind of ended at the Beast. You start at 6:30 in the morning. I think you would be able to get that all done by 10 o'clock. But to me, Ryan, I mean, the question is, who would this appeal to? Is it going to be just the coaster enthusiasts? Is it going to be the pass holder? They're not part of a coaster group, but they love Kings Island. Are they going to want to do it? Is there families that are going to want to do this? So, who would it appeal to? So if you're interested in something like this, you think Kings Island should offer what Canada's Wonderland is doing, and go to their website at Canada's Wonderland and or Cedar Point, and check out what the sunrise tours include, and how that could work at Kings Island, and leave us a comment if you're watching it on YouTube, and just let us know what it would have to be for you to be interested in this.
Yeah, like envision. Now, granted, to clarify, I quoted the price $225 and $175 for non-pass and pass holder. That's Canadian dollars, so it's actually cheaper than you think. It's more like $180 and $100 or so. That's subject to change. So I would assume, since it seems like their pricing structure is equal across the chain for the most part, that it'll be that price in American dollars for a Kings Island version of this. So have those prices built in: $225 for a non-pass holder, $175 for a pass holder. What are the activities in addition to like a meal voucher and stuff like that? What kind of special access would you need to have in order to fork out that money, say once a season or once in a lifetime or whatever? What would get you to do it? Leave a comment.
And you just have somebody from guest services that would take them back to these spots But
Hmm.
then you would have somebody from maintenance, tech services. They're the ones talking about it. They're the experts. You want to hear from them. With all due respect, you don't really want to hear from the guest services person about the beast. You want to hear from somebody that's working on it every single day, and that would be the maintenance crew, or with boo blasters, tech services working on the guns and everything. I think that would add a lot of value to it if you had people that were the closest to the work, telling you what they do every day.
Cool. Yeah. If you spend the extra $500, you can have Ryan the ride mechanic himself give you the tour. That would be fun. I'd probably spring that to hang out with Ryan the ride mechanic all day.
That guy's a must watch. I think if you're interested in the the mechanics of theme park rides, that guy is someone that you need to watch all of his episodes. Tremendous insights.
I I've got it so I get an alert when he uploads an episode because I can't miss one. Well, so Don, we're talking about the different speculating about things that Kings Island could be doing. But we've got a lot of like little tidbit news that we wanted to kind of shoehorn into this episode.
We do. We'll call these our Kings Island briefs. And for starters, Extreme Skyflyer. It's in the process of being dismantled. The cranes arrived on property as we record this week, and piece by piece, it's coming down. Still no word from the park, though, officially. All we've heard from them is that they just quietly put it on the website, or not put it on the website, just took it off the website. They didn't even put anything out there. They just removed it. So still haven't heard from the park, explaining the decision to retire it now. It was getting ready for its 30th anniversary season. It was one of the top performing attractions like this in the industry. So, I think people would like to know what went into the decision, why this attraction, why now. So that's something we're still waiting for, other than just it disappears from the park's website and mobile app.
So to their credit, I've seen a couple people that actively reached out to the park via their contact us page, and they did say that Extreme Skyflyer is being retired after nearly 30 years.
Yeah, but
No reasoning or anything like that.
No reasoning or anything like that. But they shouldn't have to be reaching out. I mean, I think it should be something the park should be forthcoming. They should have put something on social media, let people know. I've seen comments from people that were part of the Skyflyer cruise, back from the beginning in 1995, or they worked on it in 2001, 2003, and they talk about that and how they're going to miss it and everything. So I think, that attraction, like I said, it's an upcharge attraction. It wasn't something everybody did, but it still holds a lot of memories and meaning to a significant number of people.
It certainly does, and it's very curious because I have tried. It would be difficult to try to get somebody. At the park level, they were probably told to remove it, but it would be difficult to get out of the powers that be the real reason beyond it just being retired. I've been asking people from like the Sky Coaster Company and Fun Time and stuff, like their opinions, and they're like, I don't know. I don't know why they're removing it.
There was some shock there. I know that.
Well, to me, it's kind of like, a lot of these parks are like, oh, Nighthawk, that was high maintenance and low ridership and expensive to run. This one requires a big crew, but it generates revenue. It directly generates revenue. Now, was it losing money? I don't know. But I think it's so weird that the cost-cutting measure. Well, I wouldn't say that Slingshot's a cost-cutting measure. My understanding is it failed some sort of inspection, and then they didn't want to pay the money to fix it. Just a rumor.
I like what you said. You used the phrase, that some of these attractions, they cost a lot to operate. Well, it also costs a lot for people to go to the park to experience these attractions too. So
sure.
You got to think about the big. I mean, you can't have. Some rides are going to cost a lot of money to run. It's just the way it is. That's how the industry works.
It is. Now, that comes back to Project Accelerate with removing rides. Because I imagine that like Kingda Ka, like Top Thrill 2 essentially hit the end of its service life I feel like the incident that happened was a good opportunity to do the conversion that they did to try to, obviously the
Mhm.
payoff wasn't there, but we know what they were trying to do. And then that was a disaster. So they weren't going to do it with King to Ka, although that would have been kind of cool. But I can see where a ride that has a maintenance budget of $1 million or so, and they're kind of like, listen, like we're only going to get a few more years out of this stupid thing.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's why rides like the Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad concern me, because that is very expensive
mhm.
for the park to operate, and it's transportation to Soak City in which guests can walk to from
Yeah.
inside the park, or they can access it from outside the park. So it's not like you have to have the train for people to get to Soak City. So I think when you start to think about what can get cut, what do we really need, and just other things that are going on and how they look at stuff, that's why, sometimes at night I think, how much more time does the train have? I don't know, but the way things are going, I have to think like that.
Well, it's funny because every kid under the age of 5 is obsessed with trains. And, I'm sure they caught backlash when the vortex was removed, but I bet if they removed the train, you're going to have parents of upset toddlers. Woof. Of
You got a
course, they're
lot of
probably,
upset
you know
people if
what
they
they'll
remove the
do?
train.
They'll
It's
not make a comment. They'll deny it. They'll make the guest services people the cannon fodder. Where I want to say Karens in there yelling at the guest services people, but I almost understand because you did pay $68 to get into the park, and you won't even pay for your stupid train to run.
the train, the sound of the train, like the whistle and all that, that
Mhm.
is woven into the fabric of Kings Island. It's the sound of summer at Kings Island. Without that, I mean, that's a void they could not replace. Doesn't matter what ride you put around it or anything like that, you cannot replace. Just those little intangibles there with
Yeah,
that ride, and what it means, and just how it's all woven into the fabric of Kings Island.
yeah. In other news, this access pass thing, Don. We stirred the bucket. We didn't know we were stirring, and then somebody else stirred it for us, and then it got unstirred. This is a mess. So they Six Flags, Universal, several other chains use the same system for the disability pass. Um, so you go to accesscard.org, you pre-register, you need a doctor's note, several steps involved, but it streamlines the process overall. We did an episode on that because the park didn't bother to announce it. They just quietly put it on the website.
And they did not respond when you reached out to see
Correct.
how that would impact the guest experience.
Yeah,
And
I reached out to the
also,
guest.
very important to note that what we were talking about had been uploaded to Kings Island's website,
Yeah,
as this is the process. This is what it is.
most certainly.
So
So you can see the change in verbiage here. I'm going to pull up on my end so it's a little bit better.
after our episode ran, let's make sure everyone knows that too. That after
yeah. So okay, to clarify, we run this, and originally it said request for help obligations should contain the IBCCES individual accessibility card, the IAC, by registering at accessibilitycard.org. So it's a command. They should be doing this. So we do our episode. People that this affects start calling the park asking, hey, I need more information on this. I heard that you changed your disability pass. The park, the call center people are telling people, no, that's not true. We're not changing our disability program. All the while, this is on their website. Later that day, there's a comment that gets made by a certain person that is totally not fed information by the park and totally doesn't shill for them, saying, we do not require that at our parks. Although they don't work there, by the way. And then they change the language. If you see on the screenshot on the right, it says to request reasonable accommodations are encouraged to obtain the IBCCES accessibility card. So basically, they backpedaled the policy. They wanted to slip it in. They wanted to essentially use the guest services people as cannon fodder. So a bunch of people that need these kind of accommodations wouldn't know about it on opening day. They show up, they're told no, they get yelled at. The people that make these decisions or choose not to communicate this out are sitting in their office or working from home. I'm talking about somebody there. And they get screamed at. They get their cannon fodder because that's what they think of you nowadays. And then we made people
on the flip side, though, Ryan, there was a lot of people that were very supportive of this change,
almost exclusively.
And also a lot of people that, reached out to me that said they were thankful that we brought this up, because they would not have known that this was going on because nothing had been communicated. A lot of people don't go to the park's website and search through all these, back pages to find these things. Sometimes
it's been the same for 100 years. So why was it different now?
Right. Well, so you got social media. You got to use it for that. You've got the news media. If you're going to have a change, this is a pretty big change. You want to reach out to them and say, hey, it's going to impact some guests and everything. Can you let your viewers know? And they're going to be happy to do that for you. But the backpedaling kind of started, though, as it surfaced. There was there's articles out there about this too. Sandusky Register, ran an article about it. But as this was going on, that's running, we're doing our episodes, it kind of comes to the surface that there's this impending lawsuit against the legacy Six Flags parks for implementing this policy. So that all kind of ties in together too, as to why all of a sudden, there was a change in the verbiage there too. It's encouraged that you do it. It's not required. It's now encouraged that you do it.
So basically you don't bother to, you can just do the old process, because this involves a few steps and it's not going to work to your advantage unless you've already done it. What's funny though, is you mentioned like that people are very supportive. People that this affects, you would think, if I told you this, you would think like, I've got a child with autism and this is just too much and it's so not accommodating and so on. All the people that it affects, they're like, oh, I went on the website, got my card, I'm good. I'm looking forward to the season. It's the people that act like they're advocates, slacktivists, that are like, this is such a HIPAA violation. Well, it's not a HIPAA violation, nor is it probably, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to say it's not a HIPAA violation, but that's not what HIPAA does. People say it's an ADA violation. That's the other argument, but I kind of doubt that because it's been implemented for a long time.
Yeah, you're not denying anybody. You're just having a process in place to streamline it, so, and everybody that had went online and got it done thought the process was pretty good.
Yeah. And again, it's sad that a policy, I thought, I was saying this on kind of the online forums, this is a new low as far as communications from the park is concerned. Huge disservice. It's bad enough. Like you and I can kind of like joke around about, oh, nobody outside of their backyard knew about soapbox racers or whatever. And that's true. And that's a miscarriage of, the money that I put into my season pass and for somebody to not do their job, but this is something that it's truly like such a responsibility of to be communicated out. And not only was it not communicated out, but I reached out to the park spokesperson, Chad Showalter, and he chose not to respond. He made the conscious choice that somebody that's disabled or has different abilities or whatever, Chad Showalter made the choice that they would not have known that they would not be able to have their accommodations on opening day.
Yeah, and like it or not, we are considered now, the media. I mean, if you're going to respond to, say, like Spectrum One, you should respond to us too, because we have questions that your audience who watches Tower Topics wants and needs to know. We're not working against the park. I mean, we're on the park side. We're just trying to help educate people so it is a good experience when they get to the park and there are no surprises. Or other times we're trying to let people know that there are these different new menu items or new merchandise, just different things like that. We are on the park side.
Well, and especially when it's like, I've reached out to Chad a couple of times looking for clarification. It's like, hey, Extreme Skyflyer is rumored to be taken down. It's not on the website. Do you want to make a comment about it? He could have just replied back with, well, first of all, he could have said no comments and we would have respected that, I suppose. But also he could have said, hey, after 29 years, it's not going to make it to 30. we appreciate everybody that worked the ride and enjoyed it, but it's not going to be there, or with this is critically important of, anyone with a disability, we got this new system. Please check our website. It's got the important information. That's all it would have taken. In this instance, maybe it should have been, hey, I see that stuff's on the website. That's going to be changed because our policy has changed.
Yeah, but, and keep in mind too, this podcast is for Kings Island fans. It's for you. It's not for Ryan and myself. It's for you, the Kings Island fans. And we're just trying, what we do with this, these episodes is, things that, you might find interesting, whether it's park history or something, but also if something comes up like this, there's a change in a policy or procedure, we want to make sure that so when you get to the park, there are no surprises. That's how we see our role, is to kind of, just inform our audience.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, you can tell that I'm a little perturbed by this, because this is one of those things where, you were
disrespected because you didn't get a reply.
I'm not even disrespected. I'm not even disrespected. Like
I'm just kidding.
I know that he doesn't respect me and he doesn't respect you, and the feeling is pretty mutual. But the fact that thousands upon thousands of people that visit the park were done a huge disservice because somebody decided they were going to work from home that day and not do their job. That really bothers me.
Today's world, if you're a communicator, wherever you are, you have your phone, you're getting your emails. Doesn't matter. You could be on vacation in Hawaii, you're getting your emails, what's going on. You see what's happening.
Well, there was no away. Last time I tried to reach out to him about Skyflyer, I got an away message saying that he was gone Monday through Tuesday, but he'd be back Wednesday. Wednesday came and went.
But those days that he said back in the auto reply you got, there were people from, that had bought coaster stock tickets that were getting emails from him about the event. So even though you weren't in the office, you were still working, doing Six Flags things, because, there were hundreds of emails that went out not once, but twice during those days to coaster stock ticket purchasers.
Yeah. All right.
And finally, we'd like to wish Kings Island's Executive VP and General Manager Mike Koontz a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mike. We like you. You're a good guy. I know you probably don't like our podcast very much. I understand that. I like you as a person.
Mike is a really good guy. One of the best people that I worked with the first time. My first experience working with Mike, he was in the finance department. And then, later on, I went up to Cedar Point, was helping with the opening of a new ride, and that. And he was at that time, was there and had multiple departments he was overseeing then. And then he came, back to Kings Island as the general manager. But nothing but good experiences working with Mike, and good guy, does care about the guest, cares about the associates. It was important to him when he took over as general manager to bring back some of those little touches that made a difference. We're talking about the glockenspiel, some of the just redoing International Street, getting that with the new pavers, and updating the fountains, to be able to incorporate that into like the nighttime experience. So all those little things like that. I think Mike does not get the credit, that I think he deserves. There's a lot of things, that have been watered down, or, the budget cuts that guests have noticed and experienced. That's not his decision. That's coming from above him, and he has to kind of do what, his bosses are asking and try to make it work the best he can with the money that he has to spend. And I think he does a great job. And I'll always have great respect for Mike Koontz.
Much respect. So happy birthday, Mike. And many more to you, good sir. We appreciate everything you've done, everything you do. Okay. Let's move on to a segment we like to call Buy or Sell. So buy or sell. King's Dominion has done a reversal and will now have Winterfest this year after announcing the event was canceled this year. buy or sell? And there might be a reason why people are asking this.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna sell that it's coming back, and I know what this buy or sell is referring to is that an email went out to Kings Dominion pass holders, and among the benefits, right there, is Winterfest. So, despite it being on there, I'm going to sell. What about you, Ryan?
Well, I'm most certainly going to sell, but I've got to ask you, Don, Winterfest being removed, that was a big deal. How do you mess this up? Like, how does this email get out?
Well, I think what you have here with the Kings Dominion email, and we've seen some other things that have happened, like Kings Island's events were published on the website, but it had last year's dates.
Yeah.
And if you clicked on the, the nighttime or the 4th of July, it was an error 404 thing. There was nothing there. Some other parks have had different things like this. The sloppiness that we're now seeing is a result, I think, of not having the boots on the ground at the parks.
Yeah.
The brand teams. There's no longer marketing at the park level, no longer PR at the park level, no longer social media at the park level. So you have a lot of people now doing all these little things, and there are people approving these things that have never stepped foot in some of these parks.
Sure.
And things are slipping through the cracks. So that's, what you're going to get is you're going to have some sloppy work out there, a lot of errors like this, because it's not the best thing. You do need people that are close to the situation to catch that. Now, if that was sent to you and you have no idea and you're just proofing it, you're looking for spelling and all that stuff, you're not going to say, hey, wait a minute, Winterfest, you don't know. Maybe someone didn't tell you, about that.
Or, you're a corporate person that just proofreads and Winterfest is the product we have. The F is not supposed to be capitalized anymore.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I think there's, and we're going to see more of these kind of things happen. By taking it out of the parks and eliminating positions and that, dollar wise, but I think penny foolish.
Mm-hmm. Stepping over $1 to grab a nickel.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know about you, but I got blown up with people sending me that.
I had at least a dozen within a minute. Like, oh, is this coming back?
Yeah, is it coming back? Look at this. How does this happen? Was the big thing that most people were asking me. How does this happen?
Well, okay. And then as far as the buy or sell is concerned, sell, they're not having Winterfest next year. Buy, they will have Winterfest again within the next 10 years when they're owned by somebody else.
I think Winterfest will come back. I mean, it's an important event. It's something that moves the needle with season passes. So yeah, I don't think it's done forever.
Cool. Let's move on to some Six Flags headline news.
Well, legacy Six Flags parks are now advertising that a Prestige Pass with the All-Park Passport will get you access to their Fright Fest mazes, which begs the question whether Kings Island plans to make the haunt mazes an upcharge with this type of arrangement in 2025 or moving forward.
Yeah, so you've been the number one person I know of that your number one speculation with all this was that
ultimately what happened, yeah.
Well, the legacy Cedar Fair parks were gonna make the mazes an upcharge, similar to how the legacy Six Flags parks do, or at least a lot of them. And then this is kind of interesting evidence that maybe they're thinking about it. So I reached out to park spokesperson Chad Showalter and asked him if that's going to be the arrangement this year or moving forward. And this is what he had to say. Sorry, he had a long statement this time. Yes, once again, working from home. But Don,
I just felt that, and having visited Six Flags parks and seen how that works, and there's revenue to be made there, with that. So I thought in time, I didn't think it was going to be immediate, but I thought in time that would be something that would be morphed into the legacy Cedar Fair parks. Didn't know when, but I thought that would be coming. That'd be pretty hard to just take that revenue off the table for the legacy Six Flags parks that have had it forever. And then now that you've got these passes can be used at other parks, if you have a Prestige Pass, you've got All Park Passport and all that, I mean, it's you got to kind of have some consistencies there. Which parks you can do this with, which parks you can't use it at. So eventually it's all gonna come together one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm calling this now, Don. The fragmentation cannot last because although my pass with the All Park Passport gets me into Six Flags parks, that's really the only synergy that we have right now. So either their membership program or this program is going to be the one that wins out in the end. It's going to be this one. You can tell because a bunch of the diamond or the gold or whatever, the second tier members that were getting a ridiculously good deal just got an email last week saying like, oh, we're canceling that program and now you pay $60 a month or something like that, which is tantamount to a prestige pass. So they might just change the name or something, but this is what you're going to get. You're going to have a prestige gold or silver pass at any park within the next 2 to 3 years, closer to 2 than 3. And then will you need the prestige to get into the haunt mazes? They have to make a decision on that because it can't be that you need it for, Six Flags Chicago, but you don't need it at Kings Island because that just leads to confusion. So they're going to try to do it. The people that were at the Cedar Fair people, the Cedar Fair regulars who are generally higher dollar guests, are going to be upset because now they have to pay for something they were getting free. And then ultimately it's going to become a gold pass benefit. With a gold pass, you're going to be able to get into the haunt mazes. So it'll be back to exactly how it was essentially in the past, except for just
I think if it makes the haunt event better by having them, 5 or 6 mazes be an upcharge, I'm in favor of that. I'm going to get, some people calling me out for that, but yeah, I'm in favor of that because I just think it makes the event better. Obviously you would have fewer guests, going to the mazes. The wait time would be a lot less. But you'd have to hire better or more scare actors to make sure that the experience was good. If people are paying for that extra on top of the admission price or the season pass price to come to Halloween Haunt, you definitely would have to make sure that you've elevated those maze experiences. But I wouldn't mind it. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, and honestly, and I've been through my rant about the prestige thing, but I want the prestige pass. I don't want it to have it forced down my throat of, oh, you can't go into Madame Fatales unless you get the prestige pass. But if it's like, hey, we're going to do this stuff, it's going to be a huge upgrade. And honestly, it'd be nice to have like some other benefits during the normal season, the core season.
Now, you mentioned prestige. Yeah, you mentioned prestige. And I thought, as I thought about prestige and got around to some other parks and that over the last couple of years, that if my home park was Cedar Point and I was going there 30, 40 times a year instead of Kings Island, it would be to my advantage to have the prestige pass and what it comes with and what you can do with it there. So yes. For me, based on the park, where you're at, that can make a big difference. So just based on where I live and what's closest to me and where I'm going to go the most, that was the reason I did not get prestige last year, just because I didn't see where that was going to be a great value for me. There wasn't anything, that was going to matter at Kings Island for me that came with that. But at Cedar Point, it would. Some other parks it would. So, I'm not ready to put prestige as a non-option for me. I'll give it some thought, and every year I'll look and see what it, pertains and how I would be able to use it at, Kings Island or wherever my home park, might be in the years ahead.
Most certainly. And honestly, my disdain for the prestige is based entirely on my experience. I bought a pass that said
you didn't have a good experience. Yeah, you did not have a good experience.
And it's not just Kings Island's fault too. Remember, I went to Cedar Point twice and got the front of the line passes and got into their VIP lounge. And then Tony Clark puts out a blog saying like, oh no, your benefits are only good at your home park. And then I go back to Cedar Point. I ask one of the merchandise people like, hey, is this true? And they're like, yeah, we're not giving them out. Then I go to the next shop and they do give me the passes. No problem. Scanning them and they printed right out. So yeah, like I said, I want the pass. I'm not against spending money. I spend a ton of money at Kings Island. I really am willing to spend a lot of money for a really good experience. Examples, I buy Genie Plus every time I step foot in Disney because I'm an idiot. You know,
Yeah, I have no
but
problem spending the money either, especially as you get up there in years 2, you realize you can't take it with you. So you might as well spend it, right? And if
well,
it's a good
right.
product, I'll spend it, and that is something I looked at last year and, thought about Prestige, and I just thought, I'm still going to be going to Kings Island more than these other parks. It just doesn't make sense for me. But for a lot
Right.
of other people, it does.
For people like you and I that visit a lot, and I visit, far more often than the average person, like if the temptation was there, like the money would be completely immaterial. Like to me, it's kind of like, the fast lane thing. I don't know how much is just for Kings Island, but let's say 1,000 because, you
Hmm.
want to get the all park passport. Let's not be silly. So for $1,000, I absolutely would get the all season fast lane. Like I don't mind spending that money. The problem though is I have to convince all my friends to get it too, because if you're the only one who has it, it's like having the
Right.
only cell phone on earth. Who are you gonna call? So with that being said, I don't buy that. But if Aaron or my other friends said like, hey, we're all gonna get it this year, I would shell it out in a heartbeat. But so with the prestige thing, it's just, the one fast lane thing is great, but I don't ride that much anyway. Yeah, the VIP lounge is kind of an insult, although that did get a little bit better this year. Uh, yeah, the more extreme or whatever past perks, that's immaterial to me. I'm trying to remember the benefits. 15% off was nice, but it wouldn't offset the cost at all. If it
Yeah,
was
Cedar
20%
Point's.
off,
I didn't mind their VIP lounge. It was a big tent, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was comfortable, nice place to kind of relax.
well, plus if I was a Cedar Point person, if I bought the Prestige Pass, I would have gotten the same deal all along. I wouldn't have had it so, oh, you get bottled water and stuff. No, just kidding. Now you don't a week later after we have your money. By the way, no refunds. So
Yeah, I got to
yeah,
tell you though, the tap water at Cedar Point's VIP lounge, that was good water. I
it
mean,
is because they've got
I
the
would have
Lake
been
Erie.
really happy about having that if I was a Prestige pass holder and was visiting Cedar Point a lot. I mean, the snacks that were in there, the water was cold.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a nice, relaxing setting. So I would have, for me, that would have worked there. Where maybe at Kings Island it doesn't because doing other things there. I'm writing more maybe there. Cedar Point, I'm writing, but I'm also wanting to, check out more of the restaurants. I'm wanting to check out the shops. I'm wanting to, that park has a lot of, just walking around, a lot of history and things there. I like exploring that. So it's a different kind of experience. The purpose of the visits are a little bit different when I go to Cedar Point versus the Kings Island.
Sure. Don, we're over 45 minutes in. Now it's time to move on to the listener question.
The listener questions. All right. What do we got here, Ryan?
We're going to start off with Darren from Atlanta, Georgia. He said, I stumbled upon y'all's podcast about 6 months ago, and I try not to miss an episode, as both of you are amazing storytellers. As I currently live in Atlanta, go Falcons and Braves, but not Thrashers, of course. I have only been to Kings Island once, and it was during Haunt, which was amazing. My question is that I get a feeling that neither of you are very big RMC fans, and I feel like a ground-up RMC such as Air Force One or Zarda would be a perfect addition to Kings Island in the Vortex spot. Thoughts? Keep up the good work. Try to make it down to Georgia sometime. I plan on making it down to Georgia sometime.
I do plan on making it down to Georgia too, one of my favorite states. But I'm an R. I mean, I don't mind RMC. It's not my favorite manufacturer. I've had some RMC coasters that I really enjoyed, and I've had other ones that I thought was a little. And I'm speaking on a broader base. I think I look at it and I think that it's too intense for the average park guest. So as
Sure.
somebody that was a park person, I'm looking at things from that to the value that a roller coaster can provide. And if it's too intense for the average park guest, for me, I would think, okay, that's not something I would want in my park if I was running that park. So that's the thing with the RMC coaster. I think they're great to deliver a great experience. I'm a huge fan of Wildcat's Revenge.
Mhm.
at Hershey Park. I thought, that conversion was done right. That's what you want when you're having a RMC conversion. I thought Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion,
Excellent ride.
really enjoyed that. So if you're talking about doing something like that with either a conversion or the ground floor up, like you talked about with what's there at Fun Spot America there at in Georgia with Erie Force, I think something like that. Yeah, I would love to see something like that. That would work for me in the Vortex spot. But if you're talking about taking a ride and I'm just going to throw it out there like Mystic Timbers, and then you're going to RMC it. No, I don't think I would, be in favor of something like that. I think you only RMC an existing ride if it's a problem ride. You don't do it just to do it, or because it's the newest thing. I think that there has to be a reason to do it, but I'm not against RMC coasters. I think they're fun, they're thrilling. It's just that looking past what my own personal interest is as a park person, I look at the the broader audience, and if it's too intense for the average park guest, that's where I kind of think about things like that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think of two examples, and that's Iron Gwazi as well as Lightning Rod, which are both 5-star rides. Those two are as good as it gets. Up there, of course, is like Twisted Timbers. That's fantastic. But the problem with like Steel Vengeance is that you mentioned it's too intense. The term I use is uncomfortable. Like I feel like I'm riding it defensively. The airtime's great, but when the airtime means that I'm getting slammed into the lap bar, that's just not fun. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic ride, and I can see why a lot of coaster enthusiasts have it near the top, if not at the top of their list of favorite coasters. But I look at that ride too, and I know that there's a lot of guests that go to Cedar Point. It's too much for them.
yeah, well, I mean, and every time I ride it, I'm like, whoa, that is pretty good. So it's better than I think. So I'm not trying to dog like the layout and stuff is incredible. It's just
Mm-hmm.
to me, maybe it's just the trains I don't like, but yeah, I always feel like I'm slammed into the lap bar. But again, a lightning rod, put that up against any ride as far as like the core experience, that's gonna beat it. Iron Gwazi, I think, is the perfect example of what they do because it's like a slightly less intense Steel Vengeance, and I'm not trying to downplay it that way. I think that that's like it's still thrilling. It has all the same elements. It's just far more comfortable. Um, but
Sure.
thanks for the question, Darren.
Yeah. Next, we have Mike from New Baltimore, and he says, "Why a month before Kings Island opens does the dining guide still show the Winterfest locations on Kings Island's website?"
Because that's the new names.
Well, Mike, I think we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier here in this episode, where you don't have the boots on the ground, anyone that's like dedicated to that, specifically at the park. It's more of a regional team now that's handling all those different kind of things. You got the web teams at the corporate office, and until somebody says, hey, change this, change that, they're not always looking at little things like this that get overlooked. So I think it's just a product of not having um, at Kings, the role that they used to have, like the digital marketing person who had the mobile app, the website, social media. Now they're part of a social team, in a region, and things like that are going to get missed.
Yeah. And let's be honest here. There's no reason to really update it until they have the menus, which they haven't released yet. Now, had they put out the menus on a blog and then it's the winter, Prancer's Pizza or all of other stupid
Yeah,
names
the
they
yeah
changed
the
up to,
guide, which
that
you
would be
click
like
on the guide link, or I think, and it pops up and it shows the Winterfest
right. Yeah. If like
locations.
for me, it's kind of like if that were the case, then be kind of like get on it, guys. But we're 6 weeks out from opening. I don't think anybody's planning their meals yet. With that being said, releasing the menus and what's on the meal plan would probably help people decide what if they're going to buy the meal plan or not.
Right.
But I don't think there's any harm or foul. I think that they're just working on other stuff
Mm-hmm.
right now. And if it still says Prancer's Pizza on opening day, we'll circle around to this question again. All right.
Right.
Okay. Next question, Chris from Coshocton, Ohio.
Coshocton. Yeah,
Coshocton. I figured that's a town you probably played hockey in at some point.
I've been through
Um,
it.
okay. In one of the episodes you released, you talked about how about racer rider numbers. So it led me to another question. How do parks know how many rides are given in a season?
It's calculated, it might be differently at different rides or different, parks. Some have, like Kings Island's computerized, rides like the
Mm,
Beast, the Racer. Prior to those rides being where the Beast was always computerized, but in the 70s, like on the Racer, when you came down the exit ramp, there was like a little turnstile thing you went through, and that's how they tracked it. The train had, like you see the turnstile there when you're
right.
coming into the station. But like on the Racer or the Beast, whoever's driving, you would see the train, and the computer knows the capacity, and you would punch in like if there's three empties,
Yeah, I
three
think you
open
hit a
seats.
button for every empty seat.
You do, and if the Beast has 33, like three people missing, it's going to show 33 instead of 36 riders. The Racer, if it's got four people riding single, it's going to show a 26 instead of a 30 when you punch those numbers in. So that's how it's done. It's done by computer on a lot of the rides, and some of the other ones that aren't computerized, they'll use that either the turnstile still, either as you enter the ride or you exit the ride, or sometimes you just manually count as people are getting on the ride.
Yeah, great question. Leslie from Wilmington, Ohio. She said, Don, as a former Kings Island ride operator, I always enjoyed seeing you at the park. You were seen as the face of Kings Island. It made me sad. It made me sad the park now treats you as a pariah. When I originally read through this, I thought she said they treat you as a pharaoh, by the way.
Oh,
But they used to treat you as a pharaoh. Now they treat you as a pariah.
Mariah.
Uh,
Okay.
Hopefully the day comes when Mr. Chad is fired. Dang, from Kings Island, and will make you feel welcome again. Does it make you feel sad after all your history there? Wow. Okay, I didn't think that question was going to take that kind of turn, but uh,
Reread the
Don,
question, please.
Don, as a former Kings Island ride operator, I always enjoyed seeing you at the park. You were seen as the face of Kings Island. It makes me sad that the park now treats you as a pariah. Hopefully, when the day comes that Mr. Chad is fired, Kings Island will make you feel welcome again. Does it make you feel sad after all of your history there? I think
No, it
they're
does
asking.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not, because I don't feel like I'm not welcome there.
Mhm.
I went, 30 plus times last season, and I felt, I felt welcome. You come through the front, the turnstiles, or, riding the rides, or any interactions with anybody in food service. If I saw park managers that I worked with in that, or, other full-time people in that, we'd stop and have a brief chat or whatever on, whether it was International Street, Coney Mall, Rivertown, wherever I ran into them. So no, I didn't really feel, that's a strong word, to use to say, made you feel like a pariah. I think that um, anytime you work somewhere, and especially for a long time, or in no matter what you do, you're going to encounter people that, and I want to be careful with my words here, but people that don't like celebrating other people's successes or other people's wins. They kind of resent people that are having successes around them. I can think back to, when I worked in hockey, sometimes in the front office, if there was somebody in ticket sales that was crushing it and somebody not having the same kind of success, sometimes there would be resentment toward that person, things like that. You can't have that really in a work environment. So I think when you have that, and there's, you run into some people in your career that, they're going to resent, your successes, your wins, your achievements, your body of work. Sometimes that happens. Uh, but that doesn't speak for everyone that works at Kings Island and how they feel, about me, or whether they make me welcome at the park or not. You don't let one or two individuals who have resentment towards you, um, influence any of that kind of stuff. You just know that that's the way of life. That's what happens. That's what's out there, and it's just that situation. And I don't let that impact anything about my visits. I don't let it interfere with how I feel about my history with Kings Island. All the memories and all that kind of those things are all intact. I spent 17 seasons working there. Grateful for that opportunity. I always will be. Nothing but great thoughts on that. So if you've read my stories that I publish on Theme Parks by Don about Kings Island, they're all pretty much highly positive stories. I don't let anything influence that, because I'm not working at Kings Island anymore. I don't feel like, oh, I can't promote the people have asked me, how can you promote the park? You're not there anymore. How can you do what you do? How can you talk about it so positive on your blogs and that, or on social media with your posts? I've grown up with Kings Island. It's part of my life. It's always going to be part of my life. So Leslie, I don't feel sad. You shouldn't feel sad either, because for me, nothing's changed.
Yeah, one person's not going to ruin 52 years of history that you've got with the park, and a deeper history than the vast majority of the people that.
Yeah, I mean, not at all. I mean, I mean, it's a pretty strong word to say, pariah. I mean,
Pharaoh would be an even stronger word.
I think that, when I attended Coaster Stock last year, I mean, there were people that attended the event. They noticed that, a couple people were not necessarily excited that I was there, that worked at the park. And they were, they would come up to me and say, you can tell that they're not liking this, or anything, but that's too bad. I mean, they got to get over it, whatever it is, at some point, would hope. But it's not anything that's going to, I love Kings Island, always will love Kings Island. When they have good things going on, I'm going to talk about that. There's a lot of history there. I'm going to write about that kind of stuff on my blog. I'm always going to be passionate about it. I don't have to be on the payroll to love it as much as I did, when I was there, or, before, when I was a pass holder. So it's still the same, the same passion, the same love for the park that I've had since my first visit in 1972.
Excellent. And if you, the listener, have questions, where do we send them?
You can send your questions a couple of different ways. You can send them through our X, which is Tower_Topics. Give us a follow there, and you can just send us a direct message with your question. Always include your first name and the city and state with that. We like to include that. But if you're not on X, you can also just send me an email. It's donhelbig@themeparksbydon.com, and just put in the subject line question for TT, and include your city and state, and just put your question out there. Nothing really is off limits. If you've listened to this show for a long time, we've had some pretty wild questions in that. We'll get to them all, hopefully, in the episodes ahead.
Awesome. Cool. And before we let you go, we do have Tower Topics t-shirts available. Tower Topics t-shirts this year come in a wicked green, wicked in terms of Elphaba from Wicked. They're $22. They include shipping. If you're interested, don't send it to me. Send Don a message at donhelbig@themeparksbydon.com. It's the same place you would send your listener questions. Reach out to him, tell him that you're interested. He'll send you the QR code. You make the payment as soon as it goes through. We'll have it to you in just a couple of days. That's $22, including shipping, which is a heck of a deal. So the price didn't go up. But hey, thanks for sticking with us, everybody. I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.